Behind the Eye of Odin. I'm your host, Eric. This week we are going to bottle our mead. It's been roughly 6 months. We're still kind of brewing. We've racked it one additional time that you guys haven't seen. Sorry about that. If you want to see that video, you can, but you'll have to tell me so that I can edit it and upload. Anyhow, we're going to bottle. I'm going to show you some of the tools that we're going to use to bottle, and then we'll jump right in, and you guys will get to see us bottle for the very first time. I've got Ashton here to help me, but first things first, you're going to need your racking cane again because you're siphoning your mead out of your carboy. You're also going to need corks, and I'm assuming you guys know what corks look like. They look like freaking corks. We're going to use standard, I think these are number 3 size. I've got the package here. 1 3/4 corks. You're going to need roughly 26 bottles for 5 gallons of mead. If you did a smaller batch, you can figure that out for yourself. You can do the math online. I just Googled it and it told me how many milliliters I needed to 5 gallons, which came out to roughly 19,000 milliliters, which sounds like a lot, but it's about 25, it's a little more than 25 750 milliliter bottles. We've got bottles of all shapes and sizes. I've got one Magnum that I'm going to fill up. We've got a lot of 750 milliliters and a couple of 500 milliliter bottles just because we wanted a couple to be able to give away and not feel bad about. Anyhow, one of the things that I did is I bought a few bottles to use because I know that they're going to be good quality bottles for reusing. I also have been saving my bottles from my commercially purchased wines and meads and things of that nature. So if they don't hold up, you'll get to watch us do a couple of those, or at least see the aftermath of those. So one of the other tools that you're going to need is a corker. This is what mine looks like. This is a home brewer's corker, and you basically just take the cork and you stick it in here and then push down, and there's a little ram you can see that comes down, pushes it all the way out the bottom here. Anyway, so that's going to be our first time using this corker and corking bottles of our mead. You're also going to need you can use just the tube and pinch it off or whatever you want. We, however, when I bought this mead making set, wound up getting a bottler. This is what my bottler looks like. The siphon hose comes in and hooks up here, and this is the closed position. You put it into the bottle. This little thing here slides up and down. Well, it's hard to slide up and down, but that's a good thing. It all comes out here into the bottle. Once it fills up to there, it stops the flow, and then you push down and close it again. Or no, that's open. And then when it fills up to here, it stops the siphoning, and you just hit the button and it closes it back up. Well, once that happens, you can pull this out. It's supposed to make for much less mess. This little piece right here is just for anti-foam. So if you're doing beer or something that is carbonated, I don't know how carbonated our mead is still, but if you're having a problem with foam, you just take this, pull this little thing off here, and you just unscrew that and screw this little tip on there, and it's supposed to off gas so that it doesn't put too much foam into your bottle. Outside of that, we're just going to be using the siphon hose. You guys have seen that before, but outside of that, let's just go ahead and get started. So one of the first problems we've already run into is when you're bottling your mead, you need your bottles to be lower than the carboy so that you can get as much of the liquid out as you can until you hit the lees. That is going to be the absolute most important part of bottling is 1, clean bottles. If your bottles already have crap in them and they haven't been sanitized, as soon as you cork them, they're going to start creating bacteria and make your mead taste terrible. So that is the most important part. The second most important part is not getting any of the lees in there, because it's entirely possible that it will continue to brew, pop your corks, and ruin your mead. So you want to make sure that you don't get any of the lees in there. I've had this sitting on the table for a good long time. I put it up there last night so that everything could settle and stop floating around. We're going to do our very, very best to keep the cane out of the lees. So If you'll take a look down here, I'm just going to go ahead and start putting this stuff together. The cork is going to be the very, very last thing. I have my cork sitting in the sanitizer right now because I want them to be sanitized, but I also want them to be a little bit slick, and the sanitizer I use makes everything a little bit more slippery than it starts out, which should hopefully make it a little bit easier. I'm going to go ahead and pull this carefully and slowly because I still don't want any of this water going back into my must. But as you can see, I've got the bottles all laid out on an end table below the kitchen table. Set those there. I'm going to pull the cork, and you guys are going to get to watch me the very first time trying to use my bottling stuff to get it into bottles. So, I'm going to have Ashton come over here and hold on to the end that we're putting in the bottles, and then I am going to punch this top foam, which looks really clean. That's a good thing. It means I'm not going to be stirring up a bunch of crap. Yes, it does look clean. That's a good thing. And then Ashton is going to hold that in the top of the bottles. Let me change the shot real quick to make sure that they see the bottles. And I'm sorry it's really dark in here. We've got all the lights on and tried to get some natural light from outside, but so as you can see, this goes down to the bottom of the neck. Hopefully you guys can see that. If you want it to be less full, which I kind of do, you just gotta pull it out. I'm gonna have to make a mess here. Okay. You pull it back out of the bottle. You don't want it in there that tight anyway. And slide this up just a hair. That's about as full as I want them to be. So now that I've got that in place, I'm going to keep an eye on it so it doesn't fall over. I'm going to stick the cane back in the lees, or back in the must, hopefully without stirring it up. Get this cane racking. As you can see, I'm just opening this up so it can bleed off some air. As you can see, it's not dripping in because this is currently closed. And then what I'm going to do is open it up. Hope that it does its thing. It's not doing its thing, so I'm going to keep racking from here. And this should be completely clear coming through here, and it looks like it is, so we're good. This is not an easy job because, well, you have to use both hands pretty much the whole time. Now what should happen is, as soon as it comes to the top, this up here should start working. Yep. And see how it won't fill any higher than that? That's exactly what we want. Then I click these two, and close it back off, and move from one bottle to the next. So we're going to go ahead and fill all of our bottles. If we have any problems with this, we'll stop and explain what happened. And we'll come back to you. But barring any terribleness, we're going to finish this off and then come back when we start the corking process. Okay, as you can see here, these are the bottles that we got filled previously. This one's actually just the leftovers of while we were clearing out the hoses. But these are what we got before we got down to the bottom of the lease, and we were able to fill an entire other bottle just with the siphon hose that had a bunch of the lease in it. As you can see, this one is not nearly as clear as the rest of the ones that we got. This is not for drinking, although I may bake with it. I don't know. At any rate, just so you guys can see, the majority of the carboy is full, or empty. So we got most of it. You're actually going to wind up with a little bit more, obviously an entire 750 milliliters more, but this is currently down to about here. Where we ran out of steam and suction and it started getting murky and gross was right about here. It's about a half a gallon. So, losing this much to bottling, not terribly surprising. Okay, so now that we've bottled, we didn't have any serious issues with bottling other than the one we showed you about where we started picking up the lease. These are our bottles, and we have the corker, and all of our corks are in the sanitizing solution soaking. I got this tip from the guy that we all look up to locally as the mead maker. He says that we don't need any sort of like sliding lubricant, but if we use the solution, which we sanitized all that stuff too, if we use the solution, it makes these a little bit more slippery so that they go in a little bit faster. Now the way this corker works, and this is our first attempt, so bear with us. This is our first attempt, so you'll have to bear with us, but basically what you're supposed to do is you load the cork in here. As you can see, I've already got one in there. Set it down flat on top of the bottle, squeeze, and it's supposed to put the cork right in. Now this cork looks like it's okay, it doesn't look broken. We're going to do some sealing a little bit later, but that is corking. We're going to go ahead and get started. If we have any problems with that, we'll show you the aftermath and what happens. So you can see with the crimping here and the pressure on top why it's important to have bottles that are not terribly old or cracked. There can be no defects. We've already checked our bottles for cracks and things like that. So when we come back, we'll show you the finished corking, or the finished corked bottles, and by then we should have some wax for sealing. That's for long-term storage. So we'll come back to that, and we'll see you back here in a minute. So we've taken our beeswax. We actually did wind up getting beeswax, which was not cheap, but functional. We've got it here on the stove. You could use a double boiler for this, or if you're willing to stand over it and use low heat, you can do it that way. I've melted all the way down, and now I've turned the heat off because I don't want it to be super hot, and I don't want it to stay super hot. Mostly because I'm worried about having the glass shatter. You can see that we've already kind of done one. This is the one with all the lease in it, but we've kind of done one, and it's got a bit of a coating on the cork, and it's got coating all the way around. This is kind of what it'll look like when you're finished. I'm going to want a little bit more around the cork, so knowing that, I'm going to want to have the wax a little bit less hot, a little cooler. So I'm going to wait for this to cool off a little bit, and then I'm going to start doing the actual bottles. I'll probably do them in several rounds of put it in, turn it, and then let it cool while I do the rest, and then start over. I don't know how many times it's going to take me, but I'll go ahead and show you. I'm sorry about the lighting. We stopped to break for lunch and to get the wax, but these are the first bottles. These are the ones that I'm actually planning on giving these ones away. So, well, all I'm going to do is, now that I have the wax melted, you can see that it's clear, but it's also kind of it's not thickening up yet. But I'm just going to take this, get my spoon out of the way. All this stuff I'm expecting to probably wind up either throwing away or just saving until next time, because this is kind of a pain. But I'm just going to take this and dip it right in and twist it. And as you can see, it's sticking really good to the bottle, but as I go to pull it out, see how it's not sticking to the cork very well, or at least it doesn't look like it's sticking to the cork very well. That's why I'm going to do repeat layers. But that's all it's going to take, is just repetition of that process. I mean, I suppose I could probably try this. I'm going to do this over here. Just put that straight on there, and then that's effectively sealed, if that's right over the top. You can do it that way if you have the space. If your cork is sticking out like that, you're going to have to do multiples. But as long as your wax is not too hot and your bottles are not too cold, you shouldn't have any problems. But yeah, this is the bottling process. This should be our last step. We've got one in the fridge right now cooling. It hasn't been sealed, but we're going to drink that, so there's no reason to put the wax on it. At any rate, during the credits I'll roll and you guys can see us enjoying a nice glass of our own home-brewed mead. It hasn't finished aging, in my opinion, yet, but it should be more or less done. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, if I can answer them, I will. Just go ahead and leave those in the comment section below. Thanks for watching this, everybody. On behalf of myself and Ashton and everyone who helped out with this, Steve Rohr, thanks for watching, and of course, until next time, Odin be with you. So now that bottling is done, it's time to taste, smell, and see if it's any good. We haven't done that yet, so this is our first. But from our hearts to your home, blessed be. Blessed be.
There is no. You sure it's on? That's